mighty ocean. Your eyes see everything. The slightest of your motions can make the continent swing. Yet in all your mighty glory, vanished from the sky. Just another story, misty man-made lie. Think of how you fell from the sky.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. And my guest today is Jamie Kelso. He's on the board of directors of the American Third Position Party. Hello, Jamie.
Hello, Clay. Thank you very much for having me on.
I appreciate it, sir. You know, I've got a few things. I'm kind of been tagged a radical. A racist, an anti-Semitic, extremist, and anti-government. Over the last 20 years of reporting on what our governments have been doing, and I have a tendency to refer to the Republicans and Democrats as two wings of the same bird, and that bird's a global vulture. It ain't an eagle. And it's not that they're stupid or anything, because as James Forrestal said, if the consistency is not the mark of stupidity, if they were just stupid occasionally, they'd make a mistake in our favor.
Well, you know, some people call the Democrat and Republican parties Tweedledum and Tweedledummer.
Okay, so we're not gonna have any argument over there. Tell me about the American Third Position Party. You're on the board of directors. How did it come about? And now there's been a little bit of there's been some third parties out there, the libertarians, who I think shot themselves in the foot by wanting open borders.
Ouch.
The Constitution Party that popped up kind of around Ross Perot. How did the Third Position Party come into being?
Well, we're new. We're a young political party. Our executive director, who's based in Las Vegas, near you there, Don Wassel, he was the chairman of one of these third parties you're thinking of, you're remembering, which was the Populist Party. Don Wassel is our executive director, so a lot of the energy that's gone into third party efforts in previous years has rolled forward into our current effort with the American Third Position. We're just a little more than a year old, and what we started with is our board of directors, which is a sort of an excellent think tank. We have Professor Kevin McDonald, professor of psychology, on our board, Professor Virginia Abernethy, who is a professor of psychiatry and anthropology at Vanderbilt in Nashville, Tennessee. We have Dr. Tom Sunick, professor of political science, and we have Bob Whitaker, who also has taught at the college level in history. So we've got those four academics on our board of directors, and they're responsible for launching this American Third Position, whose purpose is to take back America for the only group that's not represented in the current political racket, which is your average white citizen who's not represented politically. Amazingly enough.
Our founding fathers told us what was going to happen if we ever allowed a private bank to issue our money. He said the banks and the corporations that spring up around them will leave your children homeless in the land that we conquer. We've got 1 million Americans out of their homes, lost their homes last year.
Well,
go ahead.
Yes, well, we're being turned into a third world country. And why is that happening? Well, the third world is overrunning our country. The borders are completely open. Everyone knows that the border is a farce. Millions of third worlders are flooding into America, and this is turning America, lowering us down to a third world status with third world medical care. We're being taken out of our own jobs by third world competition for wages, and and a population of people coming into the country who, well, I just heard a headline on the radio this morning driving over here to appear on your show. I heard the headline from Acapulco, Mexico, where the teachers in Acapulco have been on strike for a month because they're being kidnapped, bribed, shot in their classrooms in the schools in Acapulco. The schools in Acapulco can't even open. They had people who showed up on the beaches in Acapulco beheaded. Mexico has turned into a giant giant chaos.
And maybe it's just coincidence that I've just had Larry Pratt on my show talking about Operation Fast and Furious. We've got the BATF, the same people that were responsible for murdering 100 people in Waco, supplying guns to supposedly the drug cartels in Mexico, and nothing's being done about that up here. Is it possible that? Let's see. I think I just put this in my last article that. Brushing aside the official explanations and excuses, when you look at what Operation Fast and Furious actually accomplished, the arming and consolidation of a military force currently fighting Mexico's armed forces, the conclusion that we, the federal government, are actively involved in destabilizing the Mexican government is hard to avoid. It's a simple statement of fact. Not only are they destabilizing Mexico, and they with NAFTA they drove the farmers out of their farms and sent them up north looking for work.
Oh well, yeah, and you know what the population of Mexico City is now?
No.
21 million. And that is an entirely dysfunctional ghetto, the whole city. You know, they can't come up with clean drinking water, public services. The police are utterly corrupt, and this is the Mexicans themselves, the Mexican government and the Mexican media reporting it. They just had a study of the Mexican police in which they admit that corruption is their style. They actually function as a corrupt force. It's not something that happens once in a while. The whole thing is corrupt. And now Clay, I don't know how old you are. You know, I've known you for a while, and I'm 63 years old. You must be getting up there a little bit yourself.
I'm a couple of years. I got a couple of years on you.
Really? Well, you and I remember a different America. You remember in Arizona. I remember. I'm up in North Dakota today.
I'm a Texan in exile. Let's keep that straight.
Okay. Well, I grew up in California, in Southern California, and I remember when our border was tightly controlled. I remember when we didn't have a problem of illegals just streaming across the desert, leaving millions of diapers and water bottles and dead bodies in their wake. I remember that without any great effort, the United States government was able to maintain secure borders. America was not overrun by a third world population. And, you know, all of this was completely unnecessary. And it must be what we had in the 1950s, Clay, the kind of secure borders we had, must be restored.
I agree. I agree with that. And one of the things that I'm trying to do here, all alone, all by myself, somebody approached me and wanted to know if we could do a benefit for Sheriff Larry Deaver of Cochise County. Cochise County is right here on the border. Douglas, Arizona is on the border, and I took a trip down to Douglas to meet with a friend of mine, but they shot him the night before. Now, because he was stopping illegals. And they ended up, Southern Poverty Law actually ended up getting Casey Nethercott, who had a 70-acre ranch down on the border. He wanted me to come down and set up the Free Americans there on his ranch and do a radio station, a radio show. I agreed to do that, drove down to see him. They shot him the night before. They were tapping my phones. They knew what we were planning, and they tried to stop him. His story went on 60 Minutes. They just didn't tell you. They
he was shot. What is his condition?
Well, he lived that. He dove under a car and only got a minor wound, but Morris Dees threatened the Jim Hogg County Sheriff's Department with a lawsuit if they didn't retry him on a case that I helped him get out of 10 years ago on pistol whipping 2 illegal aliens. He didn't. He arrested them on a friend's ranch in Jim Hogg County, Texas. They took him to court, tried to keep him from getting his insulin and all that, and he beat it, got a hung jury. So they brought him back to Texas to retry him. This is after we talked about coming down. He wanted me to come down. He wanted to put the Free American back together again. He wanted to put the, he wanted to do a radio station. Can you help me with a radio station? Yes, I can. Come down and see me. I said, well, buy me breakfast, Casey. I'll be there in the morning. They shot him coming out of Safeway with my breakfast. It was the, and I think it was the Border Patrol that shot him. Sheriff Deaver and I talked about that. He knows him. But while he was in Texas standing trial, which he got a couple of years for in a Texas penitentiary for pistol whipping of 2 illegals, Morris Dees sued him in Arizona. He got a default judgment because he was on trial in Texas for his life, and took his 70-acre ranch away and gave it to the illegals. But I just had breakfast with Larry Deaver of Cochise County, and he is asking for help. He's asking for help. So Sheriff Deaver, Joe Arpaio of Maricopa, and Paul Babu of Pinellas County under a great deal of pressure. The people want to be secure in their homes and cities. They voted in a law based on federal laws to deal with the problem of criminal aliens within our borders. At the same time, the federal government, joined by a few foreign countries, are suing the state of Arizona to stop enforcement of the law the people just voted for. Now, Larry and the lady that introduced us wanted me to help put on a rally in Cochise County to help make people aware of the problems our border sheriffs are facing. And right now, this story came in this morning. I said sometimes I think God works through the internet. Not only did he get me in touch with you again to talk about a political party that may have an answer and is willing to address this kind of thing that the mainstream won't touch about this, but right now, from San Antonio, if you're tired of hearing that the Obama White House, from the Obama White House, said the Texas-Mexico border is more secure than ever, the Texas Department of Agriculture, along with the Department of Public Safety, hired 2 retired U.S. generals to evaluate the true status. Texas Agricultural Commissioner Todd Staples today released Texas Border Security, a strategic military assessment. An independent study, former generals Barry McCaffrey and Major General Robert Scales at the Protect Your Texas Border Summit in Austin, among their findings is that the criminality spawned in Mexico is spilling over into the United States. Mexican drug cartels are building a sanitary zone about 1 county deep along the Texas, within the U.S., along the Texas and of course Arizona and New Mexico border. They will use this area to escape law enforcement and provide an area of safe movement for drug smugglers and human traffickers. Texas is the tactical close combat zone and front line in this conflict. Texans have been assaulted by cross-border gangs and narco-terrorist activities, and it's estimated that over 60,000 Americans have been murdered by illegal aliens, which compromise 40% of our prison systems in these 3 states. Your comments?
Wow. Well, what you're describing there is, no question about it, we are Mexico is at war with the United States. And the entire the Mexican nation, the government, the people, the gangs, are waging war against America. And
we're paying them to do it.
Has,
we're supporting them while they do it under the welfare system.
Yeah, America in its history has declared war against other nations for far, far less than Mexico is doing to America right now. And, you know, well, I'll tell you one thing that's necessary, and this is why I'm involved with the American Third Position. That's the actual name of our party, American Third Position, and our website is American3p.org. I got involved because I would say this is the 800-pound gorilla issue, is uncontrolled borders and the invasion, the taking over of our nation. This is the most serious assault that could be launched on a nation. It's worse than war. A nation that goes to war with you and shells you and bombs you, their armies leave at some point, and they leave your nation back to you, and you can repair the buildings and the damage from the war. If a nation that invades you and occupies your territory, what Mexico is doing and what Mexico is doing, this is permanent. It is forever. And those counties that have already gone where white Americans are now a minority in their own counties, how do we regain those counties? How do you regain political control in a county where you are a ever smaller minority? You don't. This is the worst possible damage that could be inflicted on America. And, you know, you mentioned some amazing numbers here. One of the amazing numbers is that the population of Mexicans in America is around 40 million.
Yes.
This is mind-boggling. And these people came, you know, as invaders. And they've been amnestied in. Reagan had an amnesty. Pretty much every president has had some sort of bogus amnesty. And these have all added up, you know, and rolled forward. And there's this continuous process of these people, quote-unquote, legalizing themselves. But we have a situation now. There are studies that show that the birth rate of this population inside the United States is so much greater than the white birth rate that even if the borders were closed, airtight, the demographic damage in the future is going to be astounding.
You know, it's interesting that they can come up here and get all these benefits, and I can't even cross into Mexico to get dental work done. My government won't allow me. I've suggested that perhaps those fences they're building down there aren't to keep the illegals out. It's more to herd them, but to keep us in. Is that possible? Is that possible, or am I being a conspiracy theorist again? I mean, it looks like what we're getting here is a little bit unequal enforcement. If I go down into Mexico, I can be thrown in jail. If they come up here, they get benefits. What the hell's wrong with that?
Yeah, well, you know, I'll tell you what's, you know, it's just astonishing that we have not seen a major political figure arise in America who's willing to champion and shout from the rooftops that we must regain control of our borders, internally at the border, and also internal enforcement, which is in every city in the United States. And I'll tell you, I'm way up here. I'm up near the Canadian border in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and let me tell you, it's astounding. But I mean, just this week, I've seen illegals arriving here in North Dakota because they've heard there are lots of jobs here.
Farms to work on. Farms to work on.
Well, yeah, but they're fanning out. They're going everywhere. There's no part of America that's immune from this mass invasion. All of these people know the insane way that we have this set up makes every child they bear an automatic American citizen, which is crazy.
Let's be. We need to be fair about this, Jamie. We need to be fair about this. Now, how many countries out there do that? How many countries in the world just give every, if your baby's born in that country, they're automatically, how many countries do that? Do you know?
I'll tell you one that doesn't. Mexico.
No, let me tell you, there is one country in the world. The only country in the world that does that is the United States. But
yes,
let me, now, I say I want to be fair. I want to be fair about this. How about, can I quote some Hispanic leaders out there?
Sure.
You old white people, it's your duty to die. ImmigrationCommunication.com. Austin Sabata, he's the Brown Berets. Go back to Boston. Go back to Plymouth Rock. Pilgrims, get out. We are the future. You are old and tired. Go on. We've beaten you. Leave like beaten rats. You old white people, it's your duty to die. Through love of having children, we are going to take over. But let's hear from the Los Angeles City Council, Richard Alatorre. They're afraid we're going to take over the government and institutions and other institutions. They're right. We will take over. We are here to stay. And the national newspaper of Mexico, the American Southwest seems to be slowly returning to the jurisdiction of Mexico without firing a shot.
Yes. Now, the what's needed, Clay, is that white folks need to stop being afraid of being called names because they act like men and women, and they fight for their children, and they fight for their children's future. And I'm not talking about fighting, the kind of fighting that our own ancestors like Davy Crockett did, real fighting. The only fighting that's needed from Americans now is political and educational. They need to speak up and stop being so polite about the, not only is your nation being destroyed today, your own nation, but what's in store now for your children is even worse. And this is just unforgivable. This is an act of cowardice. That white Americans today would allow this to happen to the country they're going to give to their children and grandchildren.
Well, let me go back to the prediction or the quote of Thomas Jefferson. If you ever allow a private bank to issue your money, the banks and the corporations that spring up around them will leave your children homeless in the land that we conquered. Over 1 million children, 1 million homes, 1 million Americans have lost their homes this last year. Is that a rough estimate? Accurate?
Well, yeah, that's another continuing story, and you and I, by the way, you and I, Clay, we both remember America of the 1950s, where a father with one job could easily support his family with 3 or 4 children.
Yes.
And mom, it's normal for mom to stay at home and with those 3 or 4 children. That was, we did that easily in the 1950s. And here we are, half a century later. Everybody's working multiple jobs. They can't afford their homes, as you say, people losing their homes. People can't find work. And this is in spite of all of the advances of the last half century, science and technology. Why have we gone backwards? What happened? Well, what happened is we went from the 91% white nation of the 1950s to what we have now, which is more like a 60% white nation. And we're headed towards being this is mind-boggling, it's unbelievable, but it's our own government that assures us it's true. On the current trajectory, we, white Americans, you, Clay Douglas, and me, Jamie Kelso, we will be a minority in our lifetimes. We will be a minority in our own country. Even older guys like us.
Clinton said that. Bill Clinton got up in California and was talking about how California, in 20 years, California would be, whites would be a minority there.
We already are in California. And we already are in, I believe, Arizona, Texas, New Mexico. There might be one other state where we have already become a minority.
Well, I hadn't really thought about it. I'm down in Tucson, and I'm not for all the people that are out there calling me a racist, you know, simply ain't true. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care what color you are. As long as you treat people right, you know, and you're not a thief and you're not a scammer. But suddenly, when my books came out and when I started, my radio show came out, and when the people in Arizona knew who I was and what I've talked about, suddenly I got all kinds of hostility here, and a lot of it comes because most of the people down here, a lot of the people down here are Mexican American, and this event, you know, I told the sheriff when we did the event, when he was talking about it, I said, if you talk about the race, if you talk about the illegals up here, suddenly the whole press, you know, the New Times, the local papers, they're going to come down on you, start calling you a racist. And they're doing that to Joe Arpaio, they're doing that to Larry Deaver, they're doing that to, you know, a lot of us around here.
Right, and unfortunately, you know, we have it real bad up here in Minnesota and North Dakota. They call it Minnesota nice. White people are really nice, and we are nice to a fault. We don't want to have anybody call anybody names, and so what our instinct is to back up and to say that we're sorry and I didn't mean it and so on. This is a big mistake. We cannot. The people we're dealing with are very aggressively racist. We're not racists, not even close. I'll give you a group that's racist, and the name of the group is La Raza. La Raza. The name of the group is The Race.
Now, you know, there's I just had a lady on my show that was in that, in the Minutemen organization that they got started down here. And she said they were being financed by the same people that were financing La Raza to get us fighting with each other. What's happening in Israel with the Palestinians and the Israelis? I would think there would be a real simple answer like that. You stand a Palestinian and an Israeli or a Jew together, and give them all the same rights and give them all the same treatment, give them all the same respect, and you wouldn't have the problems that you got over there. So the elitist and what I think the banksters are the elitist down here. They're the ones that are getting presidents handing them $2 trillion. Here, guys, here's a going away present. Thanks for your thing. Here's a couple of trillion.
Well, you know, and I think you know, the way out is we're going to have to grow some backbone. We're going to have to hark back to our Davy Crockett roots. You know, these are our blood ancestors, people like the folks that fought at the Alamo. Davy Crockett got on a horse in Tennessee, rode all the way to Texas to help his brothers and sisters in Texas defend themselves.
And we still remember the Alamo. I also remember Waco.
Yeah, but you know, and it's happening. I don't want to sound gloom and doom because I'm very optimistic about folks waking up, and the American Third Position political product is just one manifestation of that. You mentioned the Constitution Party. Chuck Baldwin was their presidential candidate in 2008.
Met Chuck.
He's a very good man.
Talked with him, interviewed Chuck. He's a great guy.
He's a great guy. He's moved up to Montana now. He was in Florida.